Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander listeners are advised that this podcast includes conversations about deceased persons. This episode contains themes of family violence, First Nations child removal, mental health challenges, traditional adoption, and grief. You can pause, skip chapters, and stop the episode at any time. If you or someone you know needs support, we encourage you to seek support through the services listed in the description.
Jaleesa Basnight's path to becoming a registered nurse was anything but ordinary. From raising a family at a young age to flying thousands of kilometres to study, Jaleesa's story is one of resilience, growth, and determination. She's now back in the Torres Strait working as a nurse with a mission to improve the health outcomes of her community and inspire the next generation. Recorded on Kawareg and Wurundjeri country, this is Stories of Wonder. Jaleesa, welcome to Stories of Wonder.
Thank you.
Firstly, congratulations on graduating. You completed your nursing degree.
I know. So excited. Wasn't easy, but we got there eventually.
And as we're going to hear, I'm sure, it's a massive, massive achievement. How's your first year been as a qualified nurse?
My first year's been amazing. I get to work back in the Torres Strait, in the community, reconnecting with families, old friends, meeting new nurses, learning. I've worked under a very well-supported team, amazing nurses, the things that they do, the things that we all do, which I find truly amazing. It's been such an honor to come home and inspire our young community members. So it's been really good.
Well, I'm pretty sure a lot of other people beyond your community are going to be very inspired by your story today. Let's get into it. So, look, you've said before that you did life kind of back to front. What do you mean when you say that?
Normally when people graduate high school, they, go out, seek careers and, venture into, finding out what they want to do with themselves. Well, I technically did my back to front. I had a family. I settled down pretty young age, not directly after high school, I guess. I met a guy. We settled down. We had a few kids. We moved into a community and, basically experienced life back to front, which was something that wasn't something that I really originally wanted for myself, but I thought it was the norm based on what and how I grew up. You graduate high school, you move back home, you work, you have a partner, you settle down, and that's life.
You grew up on Darnley and Yam Islands and you moved around families quite a bit when you were young. These are pretty big challenges for a young person. So how did that shape you when you were growing up?
I'll start from basically the start. So technically I was traditionally adopted at a young age, I think at the age of 2 to my grandparents. So it's quite common in the Torres Strait child gifting is, very quite common. So I was basically promised to my grandparents. I think at that time they would have been in their probably 40s, late 40s, going on to 50s. So I basically relocated from Sydney to the Torres Strait with my grandparents, which I do acknowledge as my parents, my mum and dad. So my mum was from Darnley Island, my dad was from Yam Island. So when we moved from Sydney to the Torres Strait, we settled in on Darnley Island first. So I grew up there and I guess life there was quite amazing. Growing up there with my grandmother, I learnt things that I thought I would never sort of experience. So we lived on fresh produce, such as we had our own gardens where we would go dig out our dinners, like sweet potatoes, cassava, bananas, fresh fruit. So our house on Darnley was basically, we basically thrived and survived off fresh produce. We had the sea, fresh fish, fresh dugong, turtles, the traditional food and stuff like that. And then going to Yam Island was quite different because the environment was quite smaller. The island was quite smaller. So I grew up in a very tight-knit community where I was practically raised by a community. So if mom and dad was busy and I was down in areas I wasn't supposed to be, I would be lectured from one end of the island to home to my doorstep and then basically handed over to my parents.
Wow.
Yeah, so basically I experienced a very two different basically livelihood.
And when you say you were growing up a little bit, sort of feeling a bit different, what do you mean by that? Is that to do, with cultural heritage? Is that to do because you moved? Why did you feel that way?
Well, see, growing up, well, realizing I was different, I guess my features was different from the rest of the community because everyone had a very distinctive features, and you would recognize each other's features based on, and you'd know what family they're from. So me
Right.
being half Torres Strait Islander, I didn't know what my other half was, but I used to be teased for being African. So I grew up really sort of hating that side of me because I used to get teased a lot about being like looking like an African, which I really didn't even know I was African myself. So I found out, I think when I was 12 years old, that I was half African, half Ghanaian. So it was
Right.
very hard for me to sort of accept it at a young age. So I grew up acknowledging my Torres Strait Islander heritage because I think I desperately wanted to fit in and feel accepted by my peers, like at school. The community in general was very supportive of me. They knew my background. They knew my biological mother. They knew my lineage. So it really didn't bother them that much, or like cause them to question me as often or as much at all, or well, really not at all. But I guess my younger years was really hard because, I was darker, my hair was different, my features was different, and I felt a little lost in identity wise, I guess. But then growing up, I started attending like cultural events, participated, like learning cultural dances, songs, and, listen to stories, and then listen to my dad talk about lineage and stuff like that. I grew to have a wider understanding of who I am. Um, and it also like shaped me to, recognize people in the community, identify people in the community as like, who they are to me and who I am to them. But at the same time, also practicing that sense of, the cultural protocol of being traditionally adopted, where I cannot seek my biological mum, because at that time
Mm.
my biological mum was my cousin. So yeah, so there is a way of informing a child when they're traditionally adopted, I think, at a certain age. So I never got that opportunity in a way. So at that sense, I learnt pretty young as well that I was adopted because other people was telling me in the street, like kids, they were telling me, oh, they're not your real parents and blah, 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 blah. So it was also going through that as well. And then I think it got to a stage where I was removed from my mum and dad at a very young age. I think I was 10 at that time, and then
Hmm.
I was relocated within the family to my mum now, my current mum. Not my biological mum, she's my mum's sister. And then
Right.
so that transition as well was also hard on me at the same time because I went from knowing what I've always known and being taught a certain way to a household that was very structured, very routine, and you earn what you like, you earn your rewards and stuff like that. So it was very hard, that transition as well. And then like also finding my identity within that family as well. So
Mm.
yeah, I guess it was a bit of a roller coaster of experience, like my early childhood, like life.
And was this the final, you know, mother figure that you had, or did you move around again after that?
No, that was the final mother figure that I had. So I guess in a way it was a learning process for the both of us because I had to learn to adjust to her. She had to learn to adjust to me and actually get to know me and like, trying to make me fit in and feel comfortable. So um my mom had a very specific way of showing love and attention along with her I guess, her journey as well. Being like, she also had I think she started late as well with her academic journey. So I think when I transitioned into her life, she was currently doing university at Griffith University. So it was,
Wow.
I guess, a challenging moment for her as well.
Yeah. And did you have siblings as well in this family?
Yes, I did. I grew up in a household with two other sisters. But prior to moving over to this my current mum's household, I also grew up with another younger sister in my mum and dad's household, which she was also traditionally adopted as well. So I grew up basically with three sisters. Yeah, which I love and cherish dearly, because my experience with each and every one of them were very unique, very different.
Yeah. And if I'm correct as well, with this sort of final family that you all had to step up really, like,
Mm.
and grow up pretty quickly because mum was working, studying. How do you think that sort of affected you and your attitude to, I don't know, what to expect, what a family looks like?
Transitioning into my new family, we basically really did have to step up really young at a young age. So as you said, mum worked continuously around the clock. And she had her reasoning for it as well. And then, at home, we had to learn to, clean the house, cook dinner, and get ourselves organized and stuff like that before mum gets home. In a way, we used to complain about it, oh, child labor, stuff like that. But in a way, it was such a good thing, because it shaped us to be who we are, now as adults. I learned to cook at a young age. I learned to clean at a young age. I learned to care for my younger sibling at a young age. And the responsibility also fell on my older sister, Nancy, which she basically took on that mother role when mum was sort of not present. So she would guide us, and she would guide us after school. Hey, we need to get dinner sorted if we want to have playtime and stuff like that. So we'd get dinner sorted. We'll have the house clean, and then we would basically have a shower and just go into the community and just sort of interact with other kids. But we also had a strict curfew where we need to be home before the sunset. So being on an island, we're at the waterfront. You're like, okay, the sun's on the water shore now. Let's head on home. And we'll be home. And by the time we're home, mom would just be home. And then we all sit down, have dinner together. And yeah.
How do you feel about your mum and some of the sort of family relationships that you had to kind of, I don't know, work with and find the dynamic with today? And do you kind of understand a little bit better now that you've studied, you've raised a family? Do you understand each other better?
I guess with my mom, our relationship wasn't really that great growing up, because I never really understood the way she cared for us, because the way she went about it was, I guess, I saw it as child labor and stuff like that. But the way she did it, I guess she was preparing us to adulthood, the way she ensured that we were able to hold down a house, we were able to look after each other, and we were able, she gave us a lot of babysitting opportunity to in different various ages, to give us opportunity, I guess, to feel what's it like to be around younger babies or be around kids. I guess the way she raised us, sort of, I do see the value in it now as an adult, now that I have a family. I do understand her a lot better. I guess from a very young age growing up, I never really understood that, because I felt like I didn't have a childhood. I didn't have a lot of things that a lot of children have. But then as an adult, talking with a lot of the kids that I grew up with, they saw basically the same thing, but reversed. They thought that we were the family that had everything, that we didn't have to work hard for. We didn't have to,
Right.
work as hard as they did. But in saying, I didn't realize that we all thought the same way about each other growing up. So in a way, every household had their way of raising their children, preparing them for adulthood. So as an adult now, I do understand, and I am very grateful for that, because I now know what to do with myself. I now know how to navigate my own family, how to navigate and hold down the fort at my own household. So thanks, Mom.
Really interesting. So you've got these different examples, I guess, of how to run a family, what family looks like and feels like.
Mm.
If we go back to, you heading into adulthood now, and very quickly you have a family, you've settled down, you've got kids, um, and then you decide that you want to do a nursing degree on top of all of that, very similar to, your mum in that example. How did you get there? Like, did you always want to study academically? And was that an easy decision to make when you've got, a partner, a family, kids to sort of look after?
To be honest, I basically wanted to be in the Navy. I basically jumped around on what I wanted to do. So I originally wanted to join the Defense Force, um and then I had an obsession with wanting to be a lawyer. And then I think during high school I experienced a bit of uni life, I guess. I think I was 15 or 16 at that time. I attended the winter school program at UNSW, the Nuragili program. So I sort of had my experience there, got a feel of what's it like to be a law student. So I went in and then I thought, oh no, law is not for me. Like it's a lot. It's full on. So
Why? What was it about being a lawyer?
yeah. So I was like, nah, Defense Force, we're going into Defense Force, that is it. And then I think I was 21 when I met my father and my children, where we basically settled down pretty young. We relocated to his community, I guess just half an hour north of Cooktown, Hofel. We lived there. I think we were together on and off for about 12 years. And within that 12 years, we had 3 children. So that wasn't easy, like, raising children in a small knit community. And like, there was various jobs option. There was there was very minimal job options. There were very minimal, things, especially with my background. Like I had no qualification other than high school. I only had a retail background because I
Mm.
started retail at 16 and that's all I ever knew. And then going into a community where there's no shops, like, it's very small, one street. The only retail store you have there is a supermarket. And then you go, next retail is probably the IGA in Cooktown. And then you have the pubs. And then I didn't feel comfortable working in pubs and stuff. So I went into aged care. So I worked at the aged care where I met nurses and I got to know the other nurses in the community as well. So um, nursing wasn't really my thing, but it was a job. And so I went into it as an aged care support worker. So I worked in aged care at the community for probably about 4 or 5 years. But then during that time, I also had my challenges where I experienced a little bit of, not a little, well, quite a bit of domestic violence as well. So there were times where I would flee. So I took off a couple of times. And then there were times where when I took off, I supported my grandmother with her hospital appointments and stuff like that. So during that time, I would attend medical appointments with her and we would sit in there. I wouldn't know what they were talking about either myself, and she wouldn't know. Well, I assume she knew because she would sit there, she would smile and she'll nod her head. And then after the appointment, she would ask me questions about her medications and what was this for? What was that for? And when do I take this? So I would spend most of my time after appointments Googling her medication and then relaying what was written on her package to her and sort of explaining it to her to the best of my understanding of what each medication was for. So I slowly, I guess, took an interest in nursing. I think after that, after realizing how poor my grandmother's health literacy was and how poor her understanding of her own health was. So I slowly sort of maneuvered my way into it. And then, so my grandmother at the time sort of convinced me, like, oh, in the old days, after having a child with one person, you're practically married. So you need to make it right with your partner and go back for the sake of the children. So I went back and then, domestic violence intervened with life again. So I fled again. And then I got an apartment in my own apartment and I stayed with, I think at the time I had 2 children. I had 2 sons. So I stayed in my unit with my two sons, and then I met a friend who was, I think she was already first year of nursing, and she came over for some sort of emotional support, and she was like, hey, rather than being cooped up in the house, have you ever considered like, studies? And then she started talking about, like doing something for myself, like, pursuing a career, something to fall back on because, every time you leave your relationship, you basically got no legs to stand on. You're basically, like, you don't know what to do with yourself. And I thought, oh, okay. So I went into my first year, wasn't so serious about it because I thought, oh, I'm not going to make it. Like, I'm not that smart, like sort of
Mm.
denying my ability, my own knowledge and like denying myself because, I guess going through DV, you sort of lose yourself in like, what you're being called, what you're being told. So you sort of succumb and submit to it. So my friend
Mm.
was like, how about we just do this? So we applied online. I got a call back, I think 2 months later for an interview.
Right. And how did you even hear about, like, how did you decide where to apply?
Well, I didn't really. So my friend was telling me about it. So she was sort of informing me about Naikiri. Well, at the time they were called IKE, Institute of Korea Education. So that she was
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, this is where it's Deakin University, but they have this like, community-based learning center where you can go and get your degree. And you're surrounded by other Indigenous students. So how would you feel about, flying down, getting away? Like this could be some sort of, you know, healing for you. You're actually doing something for yourself. Your mind is not with your current problem. You're actually seeking and you're and then she's sort of relaying back what I spoke to her about, you know, I guess we got passionate about our conversation about health literacy within communities and stuff like that. So we wanted to pursue, that's like, we both wanted to pursue it. So I was like, okay, let's do it. I met one of the staff members, had a bit of a tour of Deakin University at Wampons in Geelong. We sat down, we went over some, interview questions, and I basically walked out of that room thinking, at least I tried. Like, I'm not going to get in. Like, they probably saw right through me. Like, I had doubts. Um, so I flew back to Cairns, and then I received like a formal email, basically as I was being accepted into university, which was a huge thing for me, a scary thing for me. And then I thought to myself, oh my gosh, I have kids. How am I going to do this?
Yeah. Well, firstly, how did you feel really truly about yourself all of a sudden getting that offer? And then where did your mind go into how to navigate how to have kids, but also study?
I was literally scared. Like, it was unreal. So I was so scared. I was sort of excited, but then I didn't know what to expect at the same time. And then like at the back of my head, I was like, oh my God, I had kids. I've got kids. What am I going to do? Like, how am I going to navigate this? How am I going to do this? And then lucky for me, I had a very supportive big sister, like my older sister, Nancy. She sort of stepped in and basically say, hey, I could support you with the kids. So, and then my younger sister that I actually grew up with, Bethany, she also offered to support me with one of my sons. So I had two sisters willing to support me through my first year in my journey. And then I think at the time, I was also getting support from my partner's family at the time as well, which they sort of stepped up and then sort of thought, oh, yeah, this is exciting. Let's, I will have the kids if you travel and whatnot. Yeah, it took me a while to get used to like leaving the kids behind, going ahead. I want to do this for them so we can
Yeah.
have a better future. Like, maybe it'll make a difference in my relationship with their father where, I won't have to succumb to domestic violence. I won't have to, succumb to the narrow-minded thinking, like, and his insecurities and stuff like that.
Yeah. What did studying look like for you from there? And also, like, what was your routine? Were you kind of mostly based in your community, or did you do most of it online, or did you have to go on campus?
Studies, like for me back then, I think my first year, they had a very strict policy where we couldn't do it online. So we had to travel to Geelong. So for me, I would have to catch, I think I was on like 3 planes. So my travel would start early in the morning, and then I would get to campus probably about 7 o'clock in the afternoon. It depends where I would travel from. Sometimes I would travel from the Torres Strait, which I would catch a plane from the outer islands to Horn Island, and then from Horn Island, the Qantas plane to Cairns, and then change over from Cairns to. I could either go via Brisbane and then to Melbourne, or to Sydney then to Melbourne, or I could just fly straight from Cairns straight to Melbourne. Which either way, I was still getting pretty late.
Yeah, that's such a huge haul.
Oh yeah, it was a huge haul. Like it was, I would get fatigued sometimes, but I would push myself. And then like we would normally travel on a Sunday, so that means class starts the next day. So don't really have much time to sort of settle in, and just you're basically getting on campus and you're unpacking, getting your books sorted, and then you're just out from like, a long day.
Wow. So you were flying in and flying out. Like, how long were you staying in Melbourne? Like, how long were these stints? Was it a whole semester? Was it a couple of days?
So flying in, flying out means that I would fly down probably 1 day travel down, like the long haul, and then I would stay for up to about 2 weeks. Weeks they would condense probably like about 6 weeks worth of studies into that 2 weeks. They would can it in, and then we also had the only online support we had was the clouds. So there were some recording, and sometimes there wasn't any recordings online of classes. So when we would return back to community, we would actually go through all this stuff online. But I was petty enough to utilize all the free printing. I would print out everything I could possibly get and find on the cloud. And because I didn't have internet access, I didn't have printer, I didn't have a laptop, and sort of use my mobile phone to navigate the cloud. It was a bit challenging at first until I think they figured out there was a scholarship. I think we could apply each semester for it, and you would get about, I think, $2,000 if you were successful. So I was successful at one stage where I walked in straight into JB Hi-Fi, slammed down a laptop. I don't know if you remember, like back then there was like these little Wi-Fi modem that you would stick into the laptop.
Yep.
The USB modem, yeah. I would used to just go get a Telstra because Telstra is the only network that worked, and then just sort of utilize that. So that was a win in the sense of access, I guess.
This all sounds a little bit, challenging and exhausting. Flying in, for 2 weeks, trying to do all, 6 weeks worth of work, and then having to fly back. But it sounds like you might have gotten support along the way. Like, what was it like working with Deacon and Naikiri during this time? And did you feel supported?
I think the first year was a bit hard because I guess English wasn't my first language, so I did struggle with English. Not normal English, I guess academic English. So Deacon, Naikiri really, the institute was super supportive. Like, I think I was a bit shy at first. I walked in and I made a friend, and I said to her, and I said, I don't think I'm going to be good at writing an essay. And they were like, well, what makes you say that? And I said, because I've read a few essays that some of the other girls written, and they've used words I've never even heard of in my life, like really big words. So I ended up walking around with a dictionary in class. I sat down with my head of faculty, I think. She was a very huge cat supporter. Her name was Jill. And I sat with her in my first year and I started talking to her about this. And then she was like, there is support in the building. You just have to go and look for it. And I said, what do you mean? And she's like, if you go upstairs and you knock on each door, you'll be surprised what you find. So I walked upstairs and I found there was all these different rooms up there. There was a room for tutoring. There was a room for if you need a tutor back home for support. And then I met another lady, I forgot her name as well. And she basically said not everybody here speaks the language that you're studying. And I was like, I don't know what that means. And she was like, oh no, nurses speak a language, and then you go into the law faculty and they speak a different language because, their terminologies are never the same. So it's a learning curve for every student that goes into each each career pathway that they want to choose. So I was like, oh, okay, I didn't know that. I just thought everybody speaks the same language because when you put it on a piece of paper, it all looks like foreign to me. And then, Yeah, so I ended up started walking, like, any little words that I hear that is foreign to me, I write it down to, like, the best I could spell it. And then I would go back to the room and then I'll sit on the laptop and I'll try Google it and then sort of familiarize myself with it. And then I was like, oh, I know that word. Let's add that to the essay. And like, Naikiri, and the staff at Kijara, they became basically my family away from home. So a lot of the aunties on the grounds would like, give me hugs and they will be like, talking about their kids. And then I found little, like there were other young mums that was there as well. So I would like, merge into the little, like the young mums group where we would just talk about missing our children, like, why we're here. So it became sort of like an emotional and like a supportive thing. And then like if I'm struggling with relationship back home, my head of faculty, Jamie, she was very supportive. So she became like my mum away from home. So any issues that I had, like, she created this safe space where we could talk to her and something that I was very grateful for. And then I think I had also support from Natasha and there were times where I wanted to fall off the bandwagon. And then and there were times that I would struggle. Like I would come to the staff, I guess, without their little push, their little, support and reassurance. I don't think I would have continued as much as I thought I would.
That's really good to hear. Did you do your course all in one stint, or was there a bit of starting and stopping? Because it sounds very challenging, just physically exhausting. Firstly, being a mum and, studying, first of all, but having to fly in, fly out, regardless of all the support that you had. How did you do it? Did you do it all at once?
No, I didn't. So I basically enrolled in nursing in 2014. I did my first year in 2014 and I imagined that I would finish uni at 2017, 2019 tops. That's what I gave myself. But I actually finished university at 2023. So it took me literally almost 10 years, to be honest, to finish my studies. My journey wasn't easy. It was quite a struggle. Like I didn't have the easy journey as most of my peers that I started with had. I'm sure they had their struggles, but we never really spoke about our struggles to each other. So like, enduring domestic violence, there were times where I had to pull out because my partner at the time would get super insecure, super jealous, and like just not supportive. And I'm not too sure where that stemmed from. Like, you got to the point where he was attacking my ability to finish, my ability, like I guess, my mindset. Like, I wasn't smart enough to do this. I might as well just pull out. Like, why am I doing uni when I'm still stupid at home? Like, stuff like that, which was very hard to take on. So it did affect me mentally and emotionally where I pulled out. And then things got physical, where to the point where I knew I couldn't travel because I know before that I'll travel, I know it'll cause an argument and then things will get physical and then I would go down battered or bruised. So I pulled out. And then there were times where I would worried about the kids if they were going to be okay. And then, so there was a lot. So I didn't really finish in the 3 years where I basically thought I would. And plus loss in the family, like I succumbed to a lot of death. I even lost my grandmother along the way, the one that sort of inspired me to get into nursing to sort of, she basically made me realize how poor health literacy was for people in the community, because I thought if hers was so bad, imagine how many in the Torres Strait are, health literacy is just as, the baseline as hers was. So, losing her was also a big setback for me, which was really, really hard. I think I went numb after that. And then I think I may have started learning to put my foot down and sort of grew tougher. Like, because she was my support system when mum wasn't around, because mum worked different places. She was my support system when I thought I had nobody. So after losing her, I thought I literally didn't have anybody, not realizing that I still did have support system, but it was from a distance. Yeah, so it was really hard. Did succumb to a lot of different things in my life that made me sort of pull out, set back, or yeah, just don't want to do it anymore because I felt like giving up. I felt I didn't see hope anymore. But then I guess every time I would stay home and succumb to what I was experiencing and enduring, I would think of a better life for my kids. So if I wanted a better life for my children, I would have to, you know, use that as a motivation to actually succeed in whatever I was doing. So I created this imaginary light at the end of a very long, dark tunnel. Like every year I completed, like my first year I completed, I think with a breeze. Then my second year and my third year was the most hardest one. So every time I would complete a semester, it was like one step closer. You know those battery that changes colors from green, like, the
Oh,
little
yeah,
bars
yeah,
that
yeah.
sort of build up. Yeah. So in my head, I was in the red. So every time I completed a semester, I would be like, okay, I'm moving up to the next color. And then that would be like what
Mm-hmm.
the orange. And then it was
Yeah,
sort of like that. And the green was the light at the end of the tunnel. It motivated me. Each bar motivated me. Each completion motivated me. So I try to keep pushing on regardless what was like coming my way.
yeah. That's amazing, Jaleesa. So you stopped and started your course a few times then. How did you get to your final year, really, and get through it? What motivated you to finally do it and not look back?
I was at my stage where I was in a really dark tunnel, I guess. I was going through depression and anxiety, and it was really, really, really bad to the point where I think it affected my job. I lost my job. And then I think my mum came and visited me one time and was very, I think, very concerned. And my mom, like I said, my mom has a very unique way of showing love. She sort of used reverse psychology on me one time, and she sat me down, and it wasn't like praising me, pushing me, stuff like that. It was more of like almost like it was degrading me, like saying that she was disappointed in me. And with the relationship I have with my mom, everything she says to me, I try to prove her wrong. And she knew that. And she sort of played that very well. So she sat me down one day and she was like, I'm very disappointed in you. Like, you turned out to be like, a disappointment. Your sisters are doing well for themselves. And then you're here feeling sorry for yourself and you're doing this and you're doing that. And she was basically making me feel like I felt really crap. I also got a phone call from Deacon. They said, I think from head of faculty, I'm pretty sure. And they were saying, "Oh, hey, Jaleesa, just letting you know you're coming up to your 10th year mark. If you don't like reapply to finish your course, your third year, then you might have to start all the way back in first year." And the instant thought I had at that moment was like, "Oh no, I can't go through this again." Like they were like,
Hmm.
"Next year's your 10th year, your final chance of actually completing the course. Do you want to complete the course?" And I just opted up and said, yeah, sure. I'll come back and I'll do it. Yeah, it was just really bad because I think at that time I was still being harassed by my ex-partner, the father of my children, because at that time I left him. I think I left him in 2019. I left, but I was still succumbing to harassment, stalking, and stuff like that. So it was really, really bad. I thought, okay, well, I need to get myself into gear. I've already said yes. So I went
Yeah.
to, I think, the Indigenous Medical Center that we had in Cairns, Woolchopperin, and I went and I got myself a mental health plan. I think I would have made 3 or 4 appointments and never attended. And then I think it was getting closer. I think about December or January, I was like, no, I need to do this because March is fly out month, like fly out month. I need to get onto it. So I got there, did a mental health plan, and then yeah, we started working on some healing and stuff like that, and went into like the pathway of medication for my anxieties and stuff like that because I was worried about flying, worried about attending my first week back on campus.
Absolutely. You'd barely left the house.
Yeah, so it was like a lot of emotion crammed into a very short time in a very short space, and trying to navigate myself and, you know, finding that next stepping stone to sort of move forward, which was, yeah, very difficult. But we eventually got to a stage where I was able to go to the grocery stores and actually do like some groceries and come home and stuff like that.
So take me then to the first day of having to fly out and go on campus. What kind of, I don't know, where was your head at? How were you feeling? And, I mean, we know the end of the story. You obviously did it at some point, but like, how did you get yourself to do that?
Like I said, I created that mental health plan with my GP, which sort of supported me through that. But the fly out day was pretty hard because I think I went through a tons of emotion where I think the day before I was practicing walking out to the mailbox, walking back, jumping in the car, going a drive around the block, like just sort of pepping myself up for the flight. And my doctor was like, "Oh, before you fly, I think you should take the max dose of this. It'll calm you, relax you, at least on the plane down." And I'm like, "Wait, what about after it wears off? What do I do then?" So anyway, she was like, "You'll be fine. Just take one step at a time." So yeah, fly out day came. I went to the airport. I sat there, I paced, I sweat, there was so many things going through my mind, right up to boarding call. And then I sat there with my medication that they gave me to take on the plane. So I took the dose that they told me to take, and then I sort of put my headphones on and I just listened to a book and I sort of dozed off. And then the day I got there, I think I was okay. I was okay. The staff picked me up from the Gull bus depot.
Mhm.
And then I thought, oh my gosh, I'm here. Deep breath. And then I started focusing on the next day. What do I do? What do I do? Like, what if I don't leave? What if I don't leave the room to my first class? Like, I was going through all that little panic attack alone in my room and thinking, oh my gosh, how do I take that next step? So I thought, okay, we'll, say a little prayer, go to bed, and then we'll try again tomorrow with this. So I think I forced myself to sleep quite early because I didn't want to stay awake and just sort of be a prisoner in my own head at that time. So I went to bed. I woke up the next day, um, took my dose, my regular dose for the day, went to class. And I think every term when my Curie has this ritual where we do a smoking ceremony, welcoming students from different, states. So I was there. There was like a big group of us. There was this two couple did this beautiful smoking ceremony, like a welcome ceremony. And we got to a stage where we had to walk through it. And I don't being a Torres Strait Islander, smoking ceremony isn't like a thing in my community. Like we don't do smoking ceremony. So I was like, oh, I really don't want to walk through all this smoke. It's too smoky. I was just thinking so negatively about it. I really don't want to do this. And then one of my friends was like, oh no, do it. It might do you good. And I was like, okay. So we went through it. I walked through it, and I don't know what happened when I walked through. I honestly think that smoking ceremony at the time sort of had a huge impact on the rest of my experience there, because the first day went like a breeze. I had no sense of my anxiety. I had no sense of any negative thoughts of myself or negative thoughts of my experience of my first day. That day went so beautifully well that I was so focused. I was so in tune with my classes. I was interactive with other students, because usually I would just sort of phase into the background because I didn't know anybody. Of course, new students, so I was a bit scared as well. But I was up front center, interacting with students, getting to know everybody else in the classroom. And then I think the next day, I got up as normal and went to class, forgot about my medication, forgot about my anxiety, forgot about I had depression, forgot about everything. And I just hammered through that week of my learning. So 6 weeks of units condensed into 1 week of learning sort of, grounded me. I felt so grounded back on campus. So I carried on, smashed out my first my assessments, smashed out a lot of my readings online and stuff like that on campus before classes. So I felt super prepared. And I don't know, I guess 2023 was a different year for me because I didn't have to think, I didn't have to worry. Everything was was sort of falling into place at that time.
That's incredible. It's like you kind of walked through that smoke and just came out changed.
Yeah, so I honestly don't know the background of the smoking ceremony, like what it does, but I don't know. There was something about it. There was something, yeah, about it that sort of put me in that position because I didn't think I would even survive that. Honestly thought I was
Yeah.
going to flunk it.
To be able to work through that amount of pressure as well, like not only, are you in a bad headspace, to put it mildly, but also this is your last chance to finish this course. Like, that is incredible that you were able to operate through that.
Yeah, well, like I said, pressure was on. So I don't know how I did it myself. Like, I don't even know how I navigated through all of that, like with that pressure of this is your last chance of finishing and everything else that was happening around me. So I don't know. Like I said, Jamie, she was the head of faculty at the time, Jamie Whelan. She was such an amazing support. I think I've cried with her a few times. I've panicked with her a few times, and she just sat there and she listened and she gave me these supports and, gave me that mummy hug that because she said, "Oh, yeah, I know you're a grown adult, but everyone needs a motherly hug." So yeah, she gave me that motherly hug. So she became, yeah, a mum away from home for me. So anything that I needed to speak to her about, she was up front and center, being that, that support that I needed or any of the student needed. So she was amazing.
So, what was graduation like then? What was the reality of the fact that you were actually finishing your course like for you?
To be honest, it was quite emotional. I think when I flew down that day, I sat in my room and I cried. I think I cried for a good hour. I cried. I think it was this reality of things that I had all the flashback from my first year, all the flashback from all the attempts of my second year, the flashbacks of my attempts of my third year, and all the struggles that I had in between. And it was almost like a walk down memory lane and like flashing before my eyes. And I was just sitting there and I was just crying and just bawling my eyes out and just grateful, I guess. I was super grateful, like for every person that I met along the way and every experience along the way, because not only did it shape me, but it also made me stronger. It also encouraged me to pursue things, like especially things that I didn't think I was capable of doing. Like right now, all year being surrounded, like my first year of nursing back home, I was surrounded with such amazing nurses that I'm, being encouraged to pursue a grad certificate now and specialize in like something. So right now I really want to do my grad cert in emergency and like, critical care and stuff like that. So I really want to go forth and, you know, gain more knowledge, gain the experience, and then come back to community. And if I work remote, I had the experience, like, to do certain things. So graduation day it was really an amazing moment for myself, an amazing moment for another nurse that was with me at the time, because we were the only two Torres Strait Islander nurses graduated that day. And it was such a milestone for the both of us. We were both mums. We both had struggles. I realized then that I was graduating being the first registered nurse for my community of Yam Island, which was such a proud moment and such an honor.
Talk to us a little bit more about that in particular. What does it mean to you to be the first nurse to sort of graduate and to be the first nurse to graduate from your community?
To be honest, it really meant a lot to me, and I really hope that it meant a lot to my community as well. Because, growing up on Yam, like, you don't really imagine such a future for yourself. Like, well, I know for myself, like, I never thought that I would be a type of person that would attend university. Like, when mom was doing university, I didn't even know what that was. I didn't even know what she was doing. Like, I didn't know what university could, like, where it could take you. Like I said, the norm for me growing up was, you attend high school, you come back, you give back to your community, you look after your elders, you find a partner, you settle down, and you work within the community. So I didn't know that there was something more outside of that until I actually, I networked with, like, I met friends, I made friends, and then my friends had experience, then they came back, and then, like, they brought their experience back and sort of encouraged and pushed me forward. And out of I think my class of my age group for that community, I think I'm probably the only one that actually went to university. I may be the only one, I'm not sure, but there could be one other or two other. But it's not a big number, like, for our small, community. Like, I would love to see more from my community to actually, pursue education outside of TAFE, outside of, to seek further education in the university level and sort of gain knowledge and understanding and come back into a community and hopefully shape our community for the better.
Yeah, that's a good ambition. Well, what message do you want to share with others who might be in a similar situation to what you've been in the past and need to work through it to sort of achieve something like this?
The message I would sort of share with others with similar experience for, like, with myself and my journey is don't give up. Find your light at the end of the tunnel and focus on it. If you have to use your children as a motivation, don't listen to the negative noise that surrounds you. Keep pushing forward. I'm also proud to say that I've also supported a lot of young mums as well. So at the moment, I'm trying my hardest to connect grassroots students from communities to actually seek education at Deakin, because I believe Deakin in One Ponds has the best support for grassroots students, and the setting that they have with the community-based learning is such an amazing setting, and it works for a lot of grassroots students. So I do hope that if you're out there pursuing your dreams, your career, your journey, don't stop. Even if you have to stop for a minute for a breather, keep pushing.
Great. So Jaleesa, did you ever think that your story would be told in an ad?
No, not at all. It worked as a surprise for me when I was asked to tell my story, but in a way, I was happy to tell my story. Like, I wanted to tell my story because I do understand that there are people that's probably going through similar struggles that I have and probably have doubts and probably don't think that they're capable of doing things that they're capable of. So when I was approached, I was more than happy to tell my story because I do want to inspire. I do want to, project that anything is possible, like, if you put your mind to it. And I guess that's what my story entails. Like, I kept my mind on it and I pushed.
Would you like to see it?
Sure.
Hey, can you see it?
See what?
The wonderful possible. Like overcoming language, distance, and economic barriers to become the first nursing graduate in your community ever.
I love this.
Quite a story, huh?
What about a PhD at 80?
Still got it.
Pop-up law clinics anyone can access?
Nice.
Or lifting others up through education.
Yeah, I see it now.
Yeah, you do. Deakin University. See the wonderful possible.
Love it.
What did you think of that? Is that really weird to see yourself in an ad?
It is. It's weird, but it's amazing. I love it.
Well, just before we wrap, like, what's day-to-day life like for you now that you're a nurse, you're working in your community, you've graduated? How's it going?
I'm not gonna lie, but it's a lot. Day-to-day life for me entails of a lot of shift work. So I work random shifts, so I could work during the day, during the afternoon, or nights. And then coming home, I have my break. I have my wonderful supporting partner, Oscar, supporting me through my nursing career. He's the one making all the sacrifices this time, where he will, take the kids out for the day. I'll get my rest, and then I'll get up. Mummy duty's still on, so I guess dinner, organizing the children, homework. Dad does part of the reading, and then so it's still the same, just a bit bipolar with the shift work, but other than that, I'm grateful and I'm enjoying life.
That's so good to hear. It's all still a juggle, isn't it?
It is still a juggle, yeah. The most rewarding part about each day is connecting with people in the community. So knowing that you're not alone, knowing that you are surrounded by so many love, so many, support, and coming home every day after work to your family is probably the most rewarding part of it all.
Yeah. So good to hear. And I guess what's next for you, Jaleesa? What's next on your journey?
Next on my journey is I'm pursuing a grad cert at the moment. So looking at my options at university, different university, I was really hoping Deakin had something that I could do with similar fly in, fly out, but no. So I'll have to seek other options, my option at different university, possibly more closer to home, not sure. See how that happens, how that works out for myself. So hopefully a grad cert, gain more experience off the island, and then hopefully come back and stay. Yeah. And then support the community that way.
Jaleesa, your story is so inspirational. Thank you for sharing it with us today.
No worries. Thank you for having me.